Hello and welcome to episode 133 of the Pitcher or the Hitter, the podcast by the M-SABR Dynasty League for the M-SABR Dynasty League. I am Cam.
I'm Sahil.
And this weekend we got the answer to a very important question that we've been wondering about all year. We finally got that answer, and the answer is McGough. It's pronounced Scott McGough. I know during my matchups this year, particularly in June and July when he was an important member of my team. As you may remember, we were trying to figure out how he pronounced his last name. When I bring him up, I'd stumble over it. Is it McGough? Is it McGough? Is it McGough? I think McGough was what we had settled on, or maybe McGough, but no, it is. And as I discovered when the Diamondbacks played the Reds this weekend, it is Scott McGough. So the more you know.
It feels so wrong. It feels like it should be McGough, but you are right. I just searched it up on Baseball Reference to confirm that you weren't just messing with me, and you are right. One fun fact. Do you want to guess what his Twitter handle is?
No. What is his Twitter handle?
It is Scooter_McGough.
Scooter McGough.
Scooter McGough, just like Scooter Jeanette.
Exactly. I do love a good Scooter. I suppose we could have just asked Yuki how it's pronounced, but I think it was fun stumbling over it every week, and now we have the answer now that he's no longer fantasy relevant.
Yeah. In honor of that, I put a Scooter fact in the chat. So for those of you who are listening to this and wondering why there's a Scooter fact on Sunday night, you now know why. But yes, he is no longer fantasy relevant. So
yeah, he had a little run, and that's more than most random relievers have. But it was a big week in the league. 1 week to go before the 2023 playoffs, our fourth playoffs as a podcast. Very exciting. The podcast era has been longer than the non-podcast era. That was made official back in like May, and we missed it. But yeah, no, closing in on these playoffs, and it wasn't the most exciting week. We had 3 matchups on 11 or on 12-0 watch, but still a fun matchup, still a fun week, and definitely a couple very interesting ones that we have to talk about.
yeah, there are a lot of fun matchups that I'm excited to talk about this week. And I also want to tease, there is, I mean, you spoke at the podcast milestone. I think it's crazy that, we are now about to do our fourth postseason worth of podcast discussion here. But there's also another very big league milestone that's coming up in a couple weeks here. I'll bring it up when it comes up. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's a big one. Now we'll I think we'll be dedicating an episode to it at some point. So keep your eyes out for it. It's going to be fun. But are you ready to dive into these matchups?
Yeah, let's do it. We had highlighted Andrew v. Ruthvik as the matchup to watch, the matchup of the year so far. And performance-wise, from each of these teams, it was a bit of a letdown. But in terms of excitement, that one, it really did live up to it.
Yeah, it did come down to the last day. Ruthvik needed Ronald Acuna to basically be Ronald Acuna on the Sunday Night Baseball game in order to, pick up a tie or possibly beat Andrew. That did not happen. Andrew won 7-5. Not really a good week in the OBP department for either of them. Andrew won with a 292. Otherwise, across the board in the hitting categories, they were, relatively close. Ruthvik won steals 8-7. Andrew won homers 14-13. RBIs, doubles, and runs. Maybe there's a little more separation, but all kind of within a range over the last couple of days where you thought, hey, maybe the other team could kind of pull together there. On the pitching end, ERA kind of went back and forth on the last day based on some reliever blowups. Ruthvik ended up winning ERA and WHIP, 4.26 ERA, 120 WHIP. He also got 8 saves on the week. Great for him there. But Andrew was able to win the other 3 pitching categories, and that was enough for him to pull off the win.
Yeah, no, definitely some reliever blow-ups, particularly Steven Wilson on Sunday for Andrew really kind of made this one a matchup again when it had not previously been. He on Sunday pitched a third of an inning, gave up 4 earned runs, blew a save. If he just had a normal starter, if Andrew even benched him, that would have put the matchup away. But he pulled it out anyway. His offense kind of the on base percentage wasn't great, but the other categories were solid. 20 doubles, the 47 RBI. Give a shout out to Austin Hayes, who had a good week. Ketel Marte against the Reds was solid. Pitching side, had a good start from the ass man, Javier Assad. Got paddocked in his first start, but pitched a gem against Pittsburgh on Sunday. And a solid start from his other Cubs starter, Justin Steele. He's rostering a lot of Cubs. But yeah, Brandon Williamson has been red hot. He's been a great pickup for Andrew. But the matchup MVP I'm going to give to Kyle Schwarber, who homered 4 times, walked 7 times. He's starting to walk more. He really hadn't been earlier in the year. So he's got a 336 OBP to go with his 188 average. A very weird season, but it's been productive, and this week it definitely was.
Yeah, no, I think he has a negative WAR on the season too. It's not I don't understand it at all, but and they keep batting him leadoff despite the fact that he's not really getting on base. But hey, it's working, so good for him. But yeah, we'll get into the playoff implications a little bit later. We'll kind of lay them all out at once, but Andrew does advance to 12-7-1, and Ruthvik is now 11-8-1. Despite Andrew winning, he does not actually clinch the 5 seed. Ruthvik still has the head-to-head tiebreaker over him, so there is still a little intrigue as to who gets a 5 and who gets a 6 seed going into the last week of the regular season, but we will get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, and I didn't mention Ruthvik's team. Like Andrew, he had a solid offensive week except for the on-base percentage, which was pretty dreadful. Case in point, Heimer Candelario had a 207 on base, but he drove in 8 runs. I don't think I've ever seen a week like that from a guy. Actually, Aaron Judge had a pretty similar week. We'll get to him when we talk about my team. But guys like Michael Massey struggled. Stephen Kwan has been kind of rough since joining Ruthvik's team. He went 0 for 6 on Sunday. Great week from Mountcastle, though. Pitching wise, both teams were mediocre, but Ruthvik got a great start from Senga. Great start from Mitch Keller. So shout out to those guys.
No, absolutely. Anything else you'd like to say here? You ready to go into the next matchup?
No, I think I'm ready. There's one in particular I had in mind that was just kind of wild. I think you're thinking the same one. Do you want to dive into it?
Yeah, let's dive into this. Last week I had mentioned that meme where it was like, hey, like, oh nice, my team is playing, and then in the middle you're like, I want to kill myself, and then it's like, oh nice, we won. Well, this week I have another meme to describe a matchup. Have you ever seen the meme where they draw the horse really well at the beginning, and then like by the end, like it just looks like kind of like a stick figure, like something that like a preschooler would draw?
Yeah, like the back of it's very artistic and the front's like a little smiley face.
Exactly. Yeah, that is 100% what this matchup was. This might be and maybe I'm exaggerating, but I don't think I am. This might be the single best offensive matchup I have ever watched in this league.
I can't imagine another matchup ever with 139 combined runs and 129 combined RBI, 25 combined steals. That's unfathomable.
No, and they each set multiple records for their team. So Erik's to put this all in context, the highest run total in league history is 71, set by Erik in the 2021 semis when he played you. So that's always fun. Erik had 70 and Yuki had 69 this week. That week I had 82 RBIs that like shattered the league record. I had 69 runs, like to also put that in perspective. Erik had 24 homers this week, which ties a record he has now set twice. He had 15 steals this week, which sets his steals record. It was previously 13. So just an awesome week for him offensively. Yuki, on the other hand, set his runs record. He had 69. It was previously 63. He had 65 RBIs, which sets his RBI record. It was previously 59. And it just like he would have. Erik won 4 of the 6 offensive categories and just barely lost the 5th. I think Yuki would have beaten basically every other team in every offensive category this week. I think there's a couple teams he would have tied in steals, and he would have lost to me in doubles. Well, actually, he would have tied me in Jake in steals, and he would have lost to me in doubles. But just looking around, I think he would have beaten every. And then he would have lost to Conor in home runs, but he would have beaten every other team in every other offensive category this week. Instead, he plays Erik and loses 4 of the 6 offensive categories. That's just insane. But then you look at the pitching, and he had a 6.58 ERA and a 1.44 WHIP, and that's why Yuki lost this week. 3 saves, 2 holds. He wins those categories because Erik's not as strong there, but he only had 51 strikeouts, didn't do much. Erik had a pretty mediocre pitching week. I mean, a 75 Ks is nice. He had 3 quality starts out of 12 starts. Not a great ratio. Only 1 save, 1 hold, 4.41 ERA, 1.32 WHIP. Like the most boring like pitching matchup you'll ever see. But Erik just won. He won the battle of bonkers offenses, and that was enough for him to pull out an 8-4 win. I think Yuki would have beaten you and Jake this week, like and Ruthvik and Andrew. He would not have beaten me, but he would have beaten 4 of the 6 playoff teams, and unfortunately, he played 1 of the 2 playoff teams he would not have been able to beat.
Yeah, no, Yuki's team is just so weird week in and week out, and really sport in and sport out. Like starts off the season looking terrible, but being in a playoff spot, and he finishes
beat Erik week 1.
Yeah, he beat Erik week 1, but he really had not been playing well the first few weeks of the season, and through the middle of the season. But he was in a playoff spot, and now he's lost 9 in a row, and suddenly he's looking like one of the best teams in the league. I don't get it. He's gonna get a good playoff spot. Or a good lottery spot. Let's hope he drafts a good pitcher with that. Yeah, this is 9 losses in a row. Like, that's ridiculous. Because he's looked really good the last few weeks. He looked great against Jake. He looked great against Erik. Hitting wise, that is. The pitching is just a disaster. He finishes with a 6.6 ERA. Just got a lot of blow-ups from his guys like Zach Littell. JP France pitched 2 1/3 innings, gave up 10 runs. Doval had a rough week. And when you're really only pitching, you're only using 9 pitchers for the full week, then that's going to happen. But hitting wise, though, I mean, Bryce Harper was fantastic this week, and so was Isaac Paredes and Brandon Lau and Randy and Bregman. Just an absurdly good offensive week for him. Erik wasn't great pitching wise, but he was good enough to win most of those categories. Verlander was spectacular this week. Scherzer had a good start as well, but guys like Hunter Green have been rough. Erik really needs him to turn it around. Waka had 12 strikeouts, but not the nicest ERA. Hitting wise, though, Erik will a great hitting week from Shohei, who is not going to be pitching for him down the stretch. That's going to hurt his pitching. Great week from Teoscar Hernandez, who drove in 10 runs, 4 homers. Great week from William Contreras. Solid week
Marcelo
from yeah, well, he's matchup MVP Marcelo Zuna. Absolutely 10 RBI, 9 runs, 5 homers, 583 on base. And then one final shout out to Royce Lewis, who was pretty solid and only like 4 games in Eric's lineup.
Yeah, if Erik keeps hitting like this, he's going to be a problem come playoffs, and his team has only gotten better as the season has gone on. I mean, we talk about Yuki having lost 9 straight. Now Erik is about to win his 10th straight matchup. He was 4-6 at one point. He is now 14-6.
I feel like we're not talking about this enough.
No, we are not. I mean, I kind of mention it every week, and it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. But like, yeah, he has now 10 straight wins, and over that time, he has beaten you. He's beaten Ruthvik, and he's beaten Andrew. So that is 3 playoff teams that he has beaten. Granted, he did not play me in that span, although he did split with me this season. He did not play Jake in that span. He lost both of his matchups to Jake, but those are still he's racking up the wins. He has a win over Andrew earlier in the year as well, so he's been putting up some quality wins. It's hard to believe he had a 4-game losing streak before this 10-game win streak. And honestly, if you just take that 4-game losing streak out, like he had a pretty solid 4-2 start to the season with a loss to Jake and a loss to Yuki, and then he has a streak where he's lost 110 straight. So it's really and those 4 games he lost were all pretty close. So I mean, he is he's a silent killer.
He's really the silent killer, the silent assassin. Never too flashy. But 10 wins in a row. This is and still in that 4th seed, although an 11th win in a row will make him the 3 seed.
Yes.
Yeah, no, this has just been insane to watch. If he wants to make a deep run in the playoffs, the pitching will need to be a little better, but yeah, 70 runs has only happened like 3 times ever, and I think all 3 of those have been Erik.
Yeah, I think you are right about that.
Because there was the year he set the runs record in the first round of the playoffs, and then he set it again in the semis.
Yeah, so he has 3 70+ run weeks then. Yeah, and it is all him. I will say too, to your point about the pitching, like there are still teams that would have beat him this week just because they were able to pitch and had like better offenses. Like I would have beat him, for example. So like you are right. The pitching definitely needs to improve, and if he's able to do that, I mean the offense already is going to make him a force to be reckoned with. But he just needs that pitching to piece it together a little more, and he'll be set. He's not someone I want to face in the playoffs at all.
No, absolutely not. Up next, though, unless you have anything else to talk about this week.
In this matchup, no. One last comment I'll make. If Yuki even had like, if you get Ruthvik's pitching staff, like this is a playoff team. Like, and like a pretty damn good playoff team. He just needs a pitching staff that's not his. I don't. It's such a poorly constructed pitching staff. There are very few things I like about this pitching staff, and I hope he targets some pitchers in the offseason, because this hitting core he has is I feel like has fallen through the cracks a little bit, but it is insane what he's been able to put together hitting wise.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, he really has. Even if he had like Anthony's pitching staff, he'd be doing great.
That's a good segue into I don't know if this is where you're heading, but I think this is a great segue into my matchup. because we talk about how great Anthony's pitching staff was. Anthony used 8 starting pitchers this week and had 0 quality starts.
Yeah, so that maybe he pitched worse. Not I don't know if he pitched worse than Yuki did this week, but he had a rough week. It's been a rough year for Anthony.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it hasn't come together. I mean, what? Sandy Alcantara took a step back. O'Neal Cruz has been hurt. Trout's been hurt. Like it's just it hasn't quite gotten together for him. Alec Manoah has been a bust, but from a matchup perspective here, Anthony lost 11-1 to me. He just across the board never really got it going. He won saves 3-2. We'll talk about saves a little more in a second here in this matchup, but I just kind of it was an interesting week for me in the extra base hit department. So I set the league record with doubles. It was previously 30, which Ruthvik had done twice. I had 31, but only had 8 home runs. Usually when I have 39 extra base hits, you're like, oh, it's a kind of a more even split between homers and doubles, but only 8 home runs was kind of weird. 57 runs, 10 steals, 371 OBP, 44 ribbies, like a fantastic week offensively otherwise. On the pitching side, I tied my franchise record in single week quality starts of 9. I previously set that in 2021. Had 97 strikeouts, 5 holds, 371 ERA, 108 whip. Wish the ERA was a little lower, but the whip was solid. And overall, just kind of cruised to a pretty easy win here. I'm bummed it wasn't another 12-0. I thought I could get a third 12-0 in 4 weeks, but bullpen wasn't cooperating there.
Yeah, for the rest of our sakes, good thing you did not get another 12-0. But you had a great week from a lot of your guys. Freddie Freeman was solid. Solid week from a lot of guys. Cedric Mullins hit a couple homers, although with a bat on base. Sai Suzuki was good.
He's been heating up big time.
He has. Mookie Betts had a 655 on base with 9 runs and 4 doubles. A couple of steals too. Pitching wise, you had 9 quality starts from 8 pitchers. The only guy who got 2 quality starts was a guy that Rotoballer thinks you should drop, Aaron Nola. 2 quality starts, pitched phenomenal. I'll leave it up to you. Is Betts your MVP or is Nola your MVP?
My initial thought was like, hey, we should give it to Betts, but in true like M-SABR fashion, like I think it's funny that we posted that article or whoever it was like posted that in the chat today, and then he just absolutely like dominated the Cardinals. He only gave up 1 hit through 7 innings today, so I think it should go to Nola just purely for that reason.
Yeah, no, I'm on board. That's Nola's first matchup MVP. Hey, he killed it. He had 14 Ks, 129 ERA this week. You got another great start from Brandon Woodruff and Garrett Cole as well, so I'll give them shout outs on your pitching side too.
Yeah, this was not a great week for my starting rotation, but one thing I want to point out because it's not all great all the time. Like you with your injuries. I have finally been hit by the injury bug a little bit. Felix Bautista suffered a UCL injury. They don't know the severity of it. If I had to guess, I'm guessing he's not going to pitch again this year, or if he is, probably not in time to meaningfully contribute to our fantasy playoffs. And that has a couple of effects. Yennier Cano, he had obviously started off the season at Leeds, struggled a little bit in the middle. He's been great again now. But he jumps to the closer spot for me, or for the Orioles. I'm plenty comfortable with him being the closer, but that does rob me of one of the top setup guys in the league. So I am going to lose out on some of those holds and not have quite as dominant of a closer. Um, and it's not just Bautista and Cano who are kind of shuffling around here. I cut two stalwarts of my bullpen this year. Giovanni Gallegos has been with my team for a while now. He's on multiple stints on my team. I got him back in the Tatis deal, the forgotten part of that Tatis deal. He was the second piece I got back. And I cut him. I thought he was going to take a closer's role back. It really hasn't happened. He gave up 4 runs on Saturday. He's done, but he was the 12th longest tenured player on my team. And then I cut Will Smith as well. He's been closing for the Rangers most of the season, but he's lost that job to Chapman. He's been awful the last month. It's there's a little bit of shuffling there in my bullpen, and they were kind of the glue that held together my pitching staff early in the year when Fried and Woodruff and Urias and Cortez were hurt. And I think it looks like the rotation is going to kind of have to start to carry their weight, which they did this week. While I kind of figure out how to rework this bullpen, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out for me. Especially given how much I've been kind of prioritizing saves this year. I'm tied for the league leading saves, and maybe that's not a category I should be expecting to win week over week anymore. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a very small margin that it hurts you, but small margins are what matter in the playoffs. So we'll see how it goes. Before we move on, I guess I'd be remiss to say if I didn't mention that Spencer Steer had a great matchup for Anthony, despite truck sticking Ellie on Saturday night.
Truck sticked him?
Yeah, he just kind of Ellie caught a pop fly and Spencer Steer ran straight into him.
Oh, I feel like oh yeah, well I guess I was gonna say like, oh, be concerned about like, or how did Steer do that to Ellie? Because like Ellie's like what, like twice his size or something like that.
Just running in from left field and bam.
Yeah, Christ. Yeah, that was a good young ad for Anthony.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's been great. Let's move on though to the next and the last close matchup there was Conor had a tight win over Alex and Zach. Conor has locked up the 7th seed. Can't go any higher, can't go any lower, depending on how he does. His offense looked great though. Yeah, he wasn't making any ad drops. The pitching was fine, but the offense was fantastic with the 55 RBI, 20 plus doubles and homers. Great on base too. I mean, yeah, he goes where the White Sox goes, and the White Sox played Oakland this week. So yeah.
Yeah, he actually set his home run record. So it was previously 20. He hit 22 this week. Yeah, just kind of cruising along here. It's especially impressive given some of the offensive pieces that he did sell at the deadline. I'm thinking Semi and Goldschmidt, a couple others. So, good for him for being able to still, put up a great
Yeah.
offensive performance. Oh
No.
God, I think I know who you're going to name matchup MVP.
Yeah. I'll dance around it a little bit. Shout out to DJ LeMahieu, who hit 4 homers with a 500 OBP. Shout out to Jorge Soler, who hit 3 homers with a 200 OBP. Shout out to Ryan Jeffers, who had 1 at bat for Conor, but it was a home run. Shout out to Justin Turner, who hit a couple of homers with a 462 on base. Shout out to Alex Verdugo, who hit 3 leadoff home runs. Shout out to Merrill Kelly, who pitched a gem against the Reds. Matchup MVP, one of my favorite players in the league, Adam Duvall, homered 5 times, 12 RBI, 516 on base, 5 doubles to go along with the 5 homers. He was on fire this week. He's so good. I love him very much. And I'm happy that he's in a city that's near me that I can go watch him.
Oh, so gross. So gross. I think he hit the home run that prevented Julio Urias from having a quality start and prevented me from breaking my quality starts record. So I'm extra salty this week
Oh,
about
that
that.
makes it even better.
He's a fucking
Hey,
move
yeah,
on.
our bet
Move
from
on.
earlier in the season, would he hit more home runs than TJ Friedel? It's a shame the bet got voided because Duval missed too much time, but even with all of the time he missed, he's still going to handily take that title.
Yeah, my one saving grace is that Friedel has actually had a pretty awesome season, especially relative to expectations. So I'm certainly not complaining about what TJ Friedel has provided for me.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, as for Alex, really bad hitting week. He's kind of gone alternated good hitting week, bad hitting week. This was a bad one. Pitching was decent though, I gotta say. Only used 8 pitchers. So you're gonna get good rate stats if they pitch okay. And Logan Gilbert pitched well, so that helped out Alex.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. But yeah, anything else you'd like to add, or do you want to discuss the next matchup?
No, 2 matchups left. Both came very close to being 12-0 also. Let's talk about me first. I killed it this week. And I wish I was playing a better team, but I killed it. Feeling a
You
lot
still would have lost to me, by the way.
feeling a lot better about my team though. I pitched really great. I got the 4 saves, which would have been nice to have against you. 54 runs, 49 ribbies, 7 steals. And what I love is that it went well enough, but not like so well that I feel like I can't repeat it. Like, I don't know, it didn't feel like I used up all my juice against EBO. I feel like, yeah, I can, this is momentum I can ride uh, into the next couple weeks. I mean, with the sub 3 ERA, the 1.019 whip. Yeah, great week from Carlos Santana when he ended up in my lineup. Solid week from Alec Boehm. Aaron Judge hit 4 homers with a 231 on base, so not quite as weird of a week as the previous one I mentioned. Pitching wise, Jordan Montgomery would have been matchup MVP if he didn't get paddocked on Sunday. Kind of had a rough 6th inning and got taken out, but his first start against Arizona on Monday was terrific. We just had a couple more strikeouts on Sunday. I would have 12-0'd EBO. I'll give a shout out to Zach Wheeler, who's been really steady. Charlie Morton's been fantastic since joining my team. 11 strikeouts in 7 innings. He's a phenomenal, just a very Cam ad. I trade a 2nd-rounder for a guy who's probably not going to spend more than 1 or 2 seasons on my team, but he'll fill a gap. And Charlie Morton has really filled a gap for me.
You're welcome for him.
Yeah, no, I'm very pleased. Shout out to Lucer and Hefo, who homered on Sunday and also had a 609 OBP throughout the week. But my matchup MVP has got to go to the big dumper, who's making me more and more feel like he's the catcher of my future. I don't know. But he drove in 9 runs and he homered 3 times. I think he's leading all catchers in homers. He had a 462 on base. The on base has been not the best throughout the year, but it really was this week. Cal Raleigh, catcher of the future, question mark.
He's been good. Yeah. I just I don't know. He's you have a nice tandem here between him and Wilson Contreras. I'll say that.
Yeah, no, now that Jonah Heim's dropped in the ratings, I am now the only team with 2 top 7 catchers.
Yeah. I don't like that, but I'm happy for your team this week. After some of the heartbreaks they've had, good for you to pull out one like this. We did find out an interesting stat about your team today. Would you like to share that?
Um, I'm not sure I know which one you're talking about.
So you have not beaten a team who is projected to be a top 4 seed. Although you do have one tie in there, but you have beat every single team who is the fifth seed or below.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I feel like I don't know. I feel like it maybe bodes well for me in the playoffs, like in the fact that I'm not going to drop a dead week. I'm not going to lose to any team I shouldn't lose to. My worst loss is against Andrew, and Andrew's a really good team. He's going to be the 5 seed, unless barring unforeseen circumstances.
And you also beat him earlier this year. You beat him the first week of the season.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I feel, and I don't know. I feel like I've been competitive in my matchups against the top teams. It's not like I'm getting blown out. I've had 2 really close matchups against Jake. I was beating you on Sunday this year. I don't
So
know. I'm hanging in there, and I'm not losing any matchups I shouldn't lose, and that's a solid way to do it.
yeah, I think this matchup against Erik this week for you is going to be a good litmus test. We'll preview that in a little bit, but this is the most positive I've heard you talk about your team in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm
You
coming
know,
off an 11-1 win. What's not to be happy about? I've got I've got Cal Raleigh on my team. What's not to be happy about?
yes, that is very true. Always good when you got a nice dumper on your team.
Oh, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, anything else you'd like to say about your team, or are we ready to discuss the last matchup?
We've given EBO zero airtime as we've talked about this matchup, and I know Sully and Zane listen, so I don't want to go the whole matchup without talking about their team. They played fine. They played a very average week. They just ran up against me, who was playing my best ball in quite some time. They couldn't quite recreate the magic from their last week's upset over Jake. But the future still, I mean, it still looks bright. Kerry Carpenter is still hitting bombs. And CJ Abrams hit a couple homers.
He's looked
Uh,
really good recently, and I think
yeah,
the underlying metrics are like actually supporting it.
yeah, and Bellinger drove in 11 runs, which is
Well,
great.
without a home run and only a 313 OBP too, just like a weird week for him to do that.
Yeah, no, super weird. I guess with Sai Suzuki getting on base so much, Bellinger's gonna drive in a lot of runs.
Oh,
Um,
Bellinger hits ahead of him, interestingly, but
oh,
yeah. Or so I don't know how that works out, but also too, Yuri Perez 6 shutout innings.
and yeah, Spencer Strider struck out 9 batters in a start. He's got a much higher ERA than I thought he did, but yeah, who's gonna win the Cy Young in the NL? Is it gonna be Strider with all the strikeouts, or like I haven't really looked much or any amount into the Cy Young races this season. Let me look up some.
I think it's a 2-man race between Strider and Zach Gallen, and I think people are gonna
Oh
say
yeah, no, Gallon's
Snell.
Gallon's been great. No
Well,
one's
I think
been.
people are gonna say, "Oh, Blake Snell," but like the walk rate, I think is just gonna like he's leading the league in walks. I think people are gonna have a hard time being like, "Oh, he should be the Cy Young."
And I
Kind of.
guess in the AL, it's looking like Gosman, but
No, it's gonna be Garrett Cole.
Gosman's been. I don't know. I like Gosman, and Sonny Gray has been. I mean, Sonny Gray's been really good. He's not going to be Cy Young, but he could be. I think he'll be top. He could be top 3. But yeah, so those are. It's going to be interesting Cy Young races, but yeah, Strider's maybe not quite in there, but he's having a really good historic strikeout season at the very least.
I think the strikeout season might get people to overlook the ERA, especially if he puts up like a solid. I think he probably has about 6 starts left in a season. If he's like really solid like that, I think people are gonna overlook the ERA. Even Gallon's ERA is 3.11. Like it's not like Strider's is so much higher. Um,
Yeah, and Strider's got a really nice FIP too. He's uh yeah, not walking a ton of guys, not gonna have a ton of homers. So yeah, well, um God, he was really good last year too. He's something else.
he is, and he's one of those guys that's like, is he going to get better, or is he going to be able to keep up that command? And he has. So kudos to him. He's been awesome. But we do have one more matchup to talk about. That is Jake v. Daniel and Matt. Jake won 11-0-1. Swept the offensive categories, won all the pitching categories except for holds, which he tied. One ERA by like a fraction of a point. Like they both had 2.73 ERAs. It was a solid pitching week from Daniel and Matt, actually. 5 quality starts with the aforementioned 2.73 ERA, 52 strikeouts, a 125 whip. But Jake was better there. And Jake left 3 quality starts on his bench. He left like 18 innings and 1 earned on his bench. Like, imagine if he had actually put those in his lineup. And then offensively, they were actually pretty close in OBP. Jake had a 313, Daniel and Matt had a 311. Jake had 15 doubles. Daniel and Matt had 13. Otherwise, it wasn't really close in the offensive categories, but Daniel and Matt held their own for a good chunk of the week before Jake kind of just blew it up today. And it just unfortunately led to an 11-0-1 loss for Daniel and Matt as Jake rebounds nicely from the shocking upset by EBL last week. He is now 15-4-1.
Yeah, no, 15-4-1. Yeah, there was a point on Sunday where it kind of looked like, hey, if the jury can finish out, if they can get a Graham Ashcraft quality start, which they did do, and they can score a couple runs or a couple doubles rather, then they can really make this a matchup. But no, that did not happen. Jake went insane on Sunday, driving in 10 runs, even this granted with a low OBP, but his pitching was off the charts on Sunday. Really great pitching week for both teams, though, I gotta say. Jake is scary. We knew that. The offensive week was good. Not like absurdly good, but pretty solid. Yeah, the pitching though is where it shined. Matchup MVP is Luis Castillo once again with the 15 Ks, 2 quality starts with a sub-1 ERA and a 0.5 WHIP. They'll give a shout out to Kevin Gosman, who gave a good start. Mike Clevinger had a good start as well. He's been a popular streamer around the league this year. Maybe he's this year's Jose Suarez. I mean, yeah. EBO, Conor, Jake, and myself have all streamed him to moderate success this year, I gotta say.
Yeah, he's been on a little hot streak recently. Especially like Oakland today certainly helped.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As for his offense, he had a solid week from Jorge Polanco with the OBP at least, and a good week from Matt McLean, going back to Arizona, who drafted him originally, and back to Los Angeles, to Anaheim rather, his home area.
I think you mean Canaheim.
I do mean Canaheim, yes. Yeah, Spencer Steer also being from there, had a great week in Anaheim. That was kind of what the Reds announcers were talking about all week. But yeah, great week for Manny Machado and Matt Olson as well. Luis Castillo, that was the star.
Yeah, no, Luis Castillo has been awesome this season. Huge for Jake's pitching staff, along with Gosman, who we discussed earlier. And speaking of earlier discussions, I do have a question for you. So we talked last week about how Jake's pitching staff had been struggling. I think it was like 4 of the 5 weeks before this. They had like very mediocre ERAs and WHIPs. Obviously, a great pitching performance this week with the 6 quality starts, 2.73 ERA and 109 WHIP. As well as the 18 innings of 1 earned ball that they left, that Jake left on his bench. Are you feeling better about his pitching, or do you still have some of the concerns that you had last week? How are you feeling about his pitching stuff?
I mean, it's a give and take. I think all the contenders except for, I guess, Ruthvik, have had question marks around their pitching staff, um, which is a funny thing to say. Um,
I would disagree about that characterization, but go on.
yeah, he's got Castillo and Gosman as a really, really solid top two. After that, he's kind of got a steeper drop off than most teams do, but hey, Mike Clevinger's next start is against the Tigers. So I imagine he's going to hold on to him. Brian Bayo's been solid. He's maybe been and Blake Snell has been the third best starter, but I don't think anyone, including Jake, believes that he's going to keep it up. I kind of get the vibe from Jake that he's happy to ride it while it lasts, but it's not going to last. He's striking out a ton of guys though. Rodon has been really bad as well. I don't know. It clicked this week. I don't expect it to click to this degree, certainly, in the future, but I don't have any. It didn't really drastically change my long-term thoughts about his team, other than, hey, maybe Mike Clevinger is someone he holds on to through the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's certainly fair. I still have some of the same questions that I had last week as well. I think one thing we were able to see this week that we didn't have last week, I think one thing I was kind of looking out for was, hey, like Carlos Rodon coming back from the IL. I wasn't overly impressed with his two starts. I mean, he did have a quality start against Washington, but it came with a single strikeout, so it wasn't dominant stuff. And then he pitched better against Tampa, but I was only 4 2/3 innings. So I'm not really sure there, although I do feel perhaps a little better. One thing I did like was Jesus Luzardo bounced back after 3 really subpar starts, but I'm also still worried about him tiring down the stretch. One thing I am a little more concerned about than the pitching staff is Bo Bichette did leave today's game with right quad tightness. This after coming back from the IL last week after the knee injury he suffered against the Orioles right before the trade deadline. It doesn't look like it's going to keep him out super long or anything, but that's definitely kind of something I have my eye on as like, hey, how does this develop? Because Bichette's been awesome for him this year. And if Jake's going to make a deep run, I mean, he has some other amazing bats, but, Bichette is a huge part of his offense. And it's just someone he'll really want down the stretch.
Absolutely. He's someone he wants. While you were doing that, I looked closer at Mike Clevinger. He's lined up to face the Tigers this week. During Jake's bye, he's lined up to face the Tigers again. In the semis, he's going to face the Royals. And if Jake makes the finals, he's going to face the Nationals. So yeah, Clevinger's a keeper. And I hope Jake cuts Clevinger before this podcast drops, because he's got some favorable matchups.
Yeah, given that Jake plays I think it's Anthony this week, I wouldn't be surprised if he just held on thinking that he doesn't need to stream. But you did mention and I think this is a good segue. You name matchup MVP, right?
Yes, it was Luis Castillo.
Right. Okay. So I think this is a good segue into our next segment. As we did last week, we're going to kind of review the playoffs. We kind of got a little more clarity than we had last week, but there is still nobody actually locked into a playoff seed. What we do have now is we've eliminated a lot of the kind of unlikely scenarios, and kind of hammered down on the ones that were likely from last week. So starting at the top here with our wins over Anthony and Daniel and Matt respectively. Jake and I have clinched buys. We still do not know who's going to be the 1 seed and who is going to be the 2 seed. If I beat or tie Ruthvik this week, I will be the 1 seed regardless of what happens with Jake, because I have a half game up on him and I do have the head-to-head tiebreaker. after beating him twice this year. If I were to lose, Jake would need to tie or lose to Anthony for me to be the 1 seed. Otherwise, Jake would be the 1 seed. From the 3 and 4 seed spot, that is you and Erik, and that's winning in. Or you're both in, but winner's a 3 seed. Loser is the 4 seed, and if you two tie, you will be the 3 seed because you currently have the half game advantage over Erik after both of you won this past week. And then from the 5th and 6th seed perspective, Andrew and Ruthvik 1 and 2 this week tied record wise. Andrew does pull ahead of Ruthvik after beating him this week. Andrew is now 12-7-1. Ruthvik is now 11-8-1. But because Andrew only won 7-5, Ruthvik does have the head-to-head tiebreaker because he won their first matchup 8-4. So if Ruthvik were to beat me, and if Andrew was to lose to Alex and Zach, Ruthvik would jump Andrew to be the 5th seed. As it stands right now, Andrew's going to be the 5 seed, Ruthvik's going to be the 6 seed, and I am guessing that's the most likely. That's probably what's going to happen. I'd be pretty shocked if Ruthvik jumps up to the 5 seed. But he does still have a chance to play spoiler this week and spoil my chances at the top seed. So he still does have something to play for. And it's rivalry week, so there's always something to play for during rivalry week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Gotta love rivalry week. Yeah, no, I'm sure Ruthvik wants nothing more than to ruin your season a little bit and make you the 2 seed.
Yes, and I would like to avenge my loss to him early in the season. I lost to him 4-7-1 in June, so I would definitely like to beat him this time around. But yeah, our matchup to watch, I just alluded to it, is you v Erik. It is your matchup, so while I type in the roto or type in the or pick would you like to preview that matchup?
Yeah, so each of the last 2 years, I've beaten Erik in the rivalry week matchup. Each of the last 2 years, he beat me in our first matchup, and I beat him in the second matchup. Each of the last 2 years, we've met in the playoffs. He won the first round, I won the second round. Each time it's had very, very important implications, obviously. But yeah, again, both times I've won the second matchup against him. I think my team, some of the injuries are coming back. And I've gotten some better news from some of the guys. Yandi is not going to have a long injury stint. I'm hoping Indy is back soon. I'm hoping Rizzo's back soon. He's taking at bats. My pitchers are obviously a wash. They're all gone the rest of the year, but I don't know. I'm feeling like I haven't had any serious injuries in a week and a half, which maybe that's dooming my team, but it's, it's been worse. I've been worse off at various points in the year, and I felt good about the way my team has played the last 2 weeks, even though I lost to you. I feel like, I very easily could have beaten you, and I feel like I can beat you, and I feel like I can beat Erik. Like, I don't know, this time last year, I wasn't sure if I had the potential to beat Erik. I know I had beaten him once exactly, but I was fresh off getting smacked by him in the playoffs. I don't know. I think I've built a competitive team. That's what I can say. The top 4 seeds can all week to week beat each other. Yes, I know I haven't beaten any of the other top 4 seeds yet this year, but I haven't gotten blown out either. I've been very competitive. Yeah, I don't know. It's just anything can happen these final few weeks. It's really coming down to flukiness, it's going to be a fluky week from some guy. Maybe Teoscar Hernandez hits 9 home runs this week, and that's what does it for Erik. Or maybe I don't know, maybe Brandon Nimmo puts up an 800 OBP. We've all built very good teams that can all beat each other. Maybe me and Erik both lose in the first round of the playoffs. Who knows? The answer is and maybe it's because I've got a beer in me, but it's all so random. Like, I would have, if you didn't have 4 quality starts on Sunday in 2020, I would have won the league that year. Like, it's all the little things. Like, if Aroldis Chapman gave up another run, the Cubs would now have a 115-year World Series drought, and Theo Epstein would have lost his job. Like, it's just so weird. It's all the little things, and I don't know, and maybe it's my brain from watching the Vikings documentary as well that's seeping in. It's all little things, and you can't predict that. And we're about to go predict that once I finish the sentence.
You're getting so introspective. I love this. There's you're getting really deep in philosophical here on 11:39 p.m. on a Sunday night with a beer in hand.
Yeah.
I love this. We need this to happen more often. But
yeah, it's been like, I haven't done podcast beers most of the season. So I guess I've been having more non-podcast beers this year, so I've been kind of feeling like, no, I shouldn't, but I decided to tonight.
Yeah, when I was a student and just had class on Monday, podcast beers are a lot easier. Now when I have to go and wake up for work in the morning, it's a little less fun. But hey, next week we can do podcast beers if we record on Sunday, because
Labor Day.
Yeah, it'll be Labor Day. So let's maybe we could plan for that. But
all right,
yeah.
It's all a long march to death, and everything. All these next 4 weeks are going to be decided by a bunch of centimeters, one way or the other. Let's pick these matchups.
Yeah. Sorry, this just cracks me up. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, it's yeah, let's pick these matchups. But before we pick these matchups, let's go over last week's pick'em. You went 4-1-1. You picked the top 4 seeds to win. So you, me, Erik, and Jake, we all won our matchups. In particular, you said Erik is going to beat Yuki 6-5-1. It wasn't terribly far off from that.
Yeah, no, I knew Yuki was going to give him a scare.
Yeah, and Yuki did give him a scare. I did chat you earlier today, and I was like, hey, Yuki could low-key tie him, and it didn't quite work out, but it was close there. But you picked Ruthvik to beat Andrew. He did not beat Andrew. And then you picked Conor and Alex to tie. Conor won, so you won 4-1-1. Meanwhile, I went 6-0 for the second time all season. I picked myself, Conor, Andrew, you, Erik, and Jake to win. Notably, I said you were going to win 7-5, kind of continuing your trend of like sneakily close wins against good team or against the non-playoff teams, especially with EBO coming off that win against Jake, and you just blew the doors off of EBO. So that did not quite work out. I'm not going to say the records, although I did calculate them, but I am now 4 games back of you in our pick'em, thanks to gaining a game and a half here. So slowly creeping on up. It is now time for us to pick the last week of the regular season. This is the last week we will be picking 6 matchups. It's hard to believe it is already here. But Cam, once again, you have the better pick'em record than me, so you pick first. Take it away.
All right. Let's start out here. I think Jake is going to beat Anthony. I think Andrew's going to beat Alex. And those are the easy ones.
Yeah.
I like the way Yuki's been hitting. I think he's going to beat EBO. I think you're going to beat Ruthvik. I think that Conor will beat the Drury, although I really want to pick the Drury, which leaves me versus Erik the matchup of the week.
If you
I
if you
just
if you want to come back to it, I'll pick the rest of my matchups.
can't pick myself. I can't convince myself that I'm going to win. I'm sorry. I'm going to pick Erik.
Interesting. I will reveal something to you in a second, but okay. Let me make my picks first. I'll pick Jake to beat Anthony. I'll pick Conor to beat Daniel and Matt. I'm gonna pick Andrew to beat Alex and Zach. Uh, I'm gonna pick Yuki to beat EVO simply because I think EVO is gonna pull some. How do I put this? I think EVO is going to be better at not actively tanking, but also not setting themselves up for success to win this week. And I think an underrated part of this matchup that we have not discussed yet on this podcast is that the loser of this matchup will get the 20% lottery odds. The winner will only get a 10% lottery odd. And both these teams own their first round picks. So while we have abolished tanking and have a strict set of rules thanks to you, it's going to be interesting to see how both of these teams kind of handle it this week. But I think EVO is going to do a better job of it because I think Zane has been planning for this whole scenario for like weeks or months now. I think I'm going to be Ruthvik. I think Ruthvik's going to have a solid week, but I think my team has just been playing so well recently that, I'm confident that they're going to hold up. But I do think, it's not going to be one of these 12-0 wins or 11-1 wins I've had the past couple of weeks. I fully expect it to look more like the matchup I had against you last week where I kind of pulled out towards the end, but I think Ruthvik keeps it, relatively competitive for most of the week. And then UV Erik. I think I have to pick. I think I have to pick Erik. He's just playing too well right now. And while deep drunk philosophical Cam, was like, it's all about centimeters, shit happens. I still think it's Erik. Interestingly, you went 6-0 last year picking these exact same matchups. So the obviously the rivalry week matchups have not changed. And you picked yourself to beat Erik last year in that last week, and you were correct about that. So that is interesting. Also of interest, I picked the same slate of matchups that I did last year, with the exception that I picked Yuki to win instead of EBO. So we'll see how that one goes. And then you picked, other than picking yourself to win, and you picked me to tie, and you correctly picked me to tie. Other than that, you picked the same as you did for last year's rivalry week to end the season. So,
Hey, all right.
yep. There you have it. It's interesting that you are less confident in your team this year than you were last year. I will say that much.
I
It
I
might
don't
be
know what
warranted. I mean, Erik has been playing well, and I know you are a little banged up, but it is certainly interesting to see that.
it is interesting, I gotta say. Yeah. Uh we'll see how it goes. Week 21 rivalry week. Let's rival it up.
Yeah, best of luck to everyone last week of the regular season. And the next time you hear our voices, the playoff matchups will be set. Hard to believe we have already reached this point of the season, but here we are.
Yeah, no, we made it. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, but good luck everyone, except for Erik.
Yeah, ditto, except I don't want Ruthvik to win, so go luck to everybody but Ruthvik. And if Jake could lose so that I don't have to rely on beating Ruthvik, that would be nice too. But yeah, we will see you on the other side. And best of luck.
All right. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
This podcast is good.